Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of Token Podcast Interviews. I'm your host and sometimes referee, the friendly neighborhood Zach Stat Pearson. And today I'm joined by he who is not the Lord of the Rings but wears the crown, O1 JV Hillard. All right, Mr. Hillard.
Hey, thank you very much for having me, Zach.
No problem, no problem. All right, Mr. Hillard, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I am a an epic and dark fantasy author. So if you are a fan of Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones or Dungeons and Dragons and sword and sorcery kind of stuff, I hope you'll like my novels. I have a series out right now called the Warminster Saga. Books 1 and 2 are available pretty much anywhere you look, and books 3 and 4 come out in March and August, respectively, this year. So. Thanks again for letting me plug that a little bit.
Oh, no, absolutely, no, bro. I'm a very synergistic person when it comes to my approach to pretty much anything online or anyone helping me do anything. If you helping me, the least I could do is help you. That's how I look at it.
Good deal.
Okay. Well, I'm just gonna go ahead and shrink my screen a little bit so I can pull up the Discord stuff. All right, let's get into it. First and foremost, our first question is, what was the moment that made you realize that this career profession is something you want to do for the rest of your life?
I've always wanted to be an author. And right out of high school and college, I thought I may go in that direction, but I was really good at math and science and had a penchant for politics. So I ended up going in a completely different direction and worked in government for about 6.5 years on the U.S. Armed Services Committee on the Senate side. And then
Oh wow,
left that
that's
and became a
very
lobbyist.
unexpected.
Yeah. I was a DC lobbyist for a number of years, doing primarily defense stuff and technology work. And then when COVID hit, I realized that this was a chance for me to kind of get back to creative writing. And I wrote a book during some downtime when everything was closed.
Hmm.
And this has always been on my bucket list to do. I knew that I was going to want to do this one day. Ended up finding a publisher who was willing to take a shot with me, and things are working out pretty well so far. So, like I said, so far so good. I'll take it. And I think that's really the turning point for me when that opportunity presented itself. And
That is
if there was a
so
silver lining in a very
unique.
dark cloud, I took it.
That
Yeah.
yeah.
So I grabbed it, man.
I
Yeah,
mean, I'm kind of the same way, but well, my situation is more like I was just an infinitely expanding balloon, and the funny or the writing needed to come out. I mean, not to bore you too much, but before COVID, uh, I was basically talked into rekindling my quote unquote stand up career. I didn't really suck, but I found out very quickly a lot of my friends weren't actually my friends once they quote unquote decided that I was funnier than them. So I was essentially surrounded by an army of backstabbers, and well, I mean, it got to me emotionally and as a person, so I left it alone. But then, my agent found me again, and she was basically like, "Why did you do that? Blah 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 blah. Oh my God, why are you letting douchebags in your brain?" And then COVID happened, and I haven't been able to contact her. So I'd like to think she's not gone from this world, but realistically speaking, you know. So I ended up going over into creative writing, trying to get a hold of people such as yourself and seeing who wants to use, the studios I'm connected to either be funny or record their own material or have their stuff, turned into an audio book. One person even wants to get their stuff made into a 3D cartoon. I'm just like, okay. I just
that's
essentially
cool.
decided, let me go into being the facilitator of cool people doing cool things.
Yeah, no, man, that sounds just, I don't know why you think that yours is boring. I mean, doing the stand-up stuff would be phenomenal. I'm a big fan. In fact, my best friend and I are going to see Eddie Griffin here in Pittsburgh.
Oh, he never
I
gets
got it
out of here.
that as a gift for him for Christmas. So we got like VIP seating. We're going down there next month to see him. I love stand-up, man. I wish I had the talent for it, but I sure as hell
Hey, look,
enjoy it
well,
from
you
the
got the
stands.
second
So.
best talent for it. You got creative writing. As far as I'm concerned, yours is a little bit easier, but also it's also more intoxicating. Like it's like I said, all jokes are essentially like bad milk. If you say it too much, people don't get interested, and they'll even get mad in you. So you always have to do something new. But you can make a book, and people can read it 50 years later, and it gets a movie another 50 years later. Um,
That's true. At least that's the brass ring, right? That's where you want it to
yeah,
go
like
and
I'm a
be
little
something legendary.
I won't even say jealous. It's more like envious. But yeah, I'm glad to hear that. I'm still also connected to a decent chunk of people who mess around on Broadway and do their own stand-up shows and host and produce them. So, if you ever want to try to get your stuff converted into anything, I probably know the people who will do it. But yeah, moving on. All right. So number two on my list of things to ask you is essentially 10 years from now, what goal would you like your products, as in your books and yourself, to have accomplished? Where do you want to be career wise in 10 years?
Yeah, so for me, a couple of things. I mean, the first is I want to complete the Warminster Saga, the first four novels, which will be done this year. And then around that, I want to wrap around some additional sort of business goals for them. As you and I had spoken off air, but for your followers, the game that I'm playing in allows me to look at movies or look at other places where my product can be developed. And one of the things we did was I've licensed my intellectual property to a video game
Yeah,
company
media
that's making it.
expansion.
Yeah, doing an augmented reality game for it. I'd love to also see it in the form of a graphic novel. I think that the kind
Again,
of writing
you've
I do.
come to the right place, or even if you haven't technically, I know the people who already have made their own stuff. So I'm just saying, we haven't technically synergized outside of literally right now, but I assure you, even if I can't be on board with it, I got no problem helping you get the people that I know that can. I I know
Yeah, well,
for
there's no reason why you wouldn't be. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just looking for, I just think that what I've got is so descriptively rich.
yeah,
It
and based
lends
on
itself
again
well
me just
to,
being bugged by your fans, you are very unusually thorough for a first timer. That's a good sign, because if this is where you start, no pun intended, imagine where you'll be in 10 years.
yeah, exactly. I mean, it's a great question because, my sense is that there'll be, the success of the first saga will beget another. And then I'd like to do some origin stories around them on some of the more popular characters. But as we've got the video game coming up in 2024, and then the potential for other types of media expansion, like you mentioned, movie, whether it's, big screen or small screen, like a Netflix thing, I think this lends itself very well to that. It may be a little bit more expensive in that medium, but I could see it going there. And of course, I think graphic novels is a great way to go. I think people that read comics would read me, and or I, as someone who reads my stuff, also read comics. And so I think there's some overlap there. There's definitely a way to weave into that community and turn
One
this
day
into
you'll come to
something that
C2E2. I just feel like it one day.
exactly, exactly, exactly. So, but yeah, that's where I think I'll be. I'll knock on wood. That's where I'll be in about 10 years.
Yeah, I don't know if you realize it, but you're in a unique position if you would come to C2E2, because you could be a participant, but also you could set up a booth potentially. Um, a lot of people
Yeah,
don't
I'd love to
realize.
hear more about it.
Oh, well, C2E2 is essentially San Diego Comic Con, but in Chicago, and it's ridiculous
Ah,
on so many levels. In fact, the company that runs it, just recently tried to purchase E3. They get everybody, like
wow.
from Chris Evans, who's coming this year, and they didn't even announce that till like 3 days ago. Even though it starts at the end of March, all the way down to, I don't know your age, but if you grew up with the Power Rangers, they got Gen 1s coming almost every year. The 90s X-Men are
Yep,
coming, and I think there's going to be a trailer for the new continuation of that 90s cartoon, as well as
that's
the voice
cool.
actors
Yeah,
will be there. And
no,
also, every single year, Marvel's editor in chief and writing staff come and they look at talent and talk to people and have a Q&A session, and they've been doing it for over a dozen years. I know because I've been to that meeting.
oh, well, that's cool. I have a convention calendar. I start the last week of March in Richmond, Virginia, at GalaxyCon, and I end in October at the New York City Comic Con this coming year. But I'd love to do the one in Chicago. I mean, that's Chicago's my second favorite city, brother. I love to get out there because it's a big Pittsburgh, right? There's all these, it's great
That's
food,
not
good
the first time I've
people.
heard that.
I'm telling you, man, I'll tell you, it's the neighborhoods, right? Like we have the same thing here in Pittsburgh. We have about 130 municipalities in Allegheny County. You guys have the same in Cook County, right? It's the same thing. You've
Oh,
got
that's
these
very
pockets of
accurate. Yes.
for us, it's been divided because you've got rivers and tunnels and mountains. You guys are a little different. You're right on the lake,
Yeah.
but it's the same kind of folks. I identify with it really well, and I think that if I had to move, Like, hey, you got to get out of here, get out of Dodge, take the family, go. I would turn to Chicago next. I love the city.
Well, I can tell you this right now, this wherever our future synergies may lead us, all roads do lead to, you going forward wherever you're trying to get and me just trying to help. I can tell you right now, were you here, like physically here, not on the recreational stuff, but as far as the business, bro, there is so many people. I could sit you down with two people and it could turn into a seven-figure situation. And I'm not saying that hyperbolically. Gravity Studios is looking and has been looking for people like you. And the fact that I bumped in and you found me is just nothing but a hilarious coincidence. Because 2 weeks before that, Gravity Studios specifically wanted to do what I was already trying to do with you, except I didn't have a you to give them. I was going to give them a science fiction writer and novelist who's also a teacher down here in Chicago. Shout outs to Rachel Cresaz, by the way. Be on the lookout for her stuff. She's writing in everything from novels that she made to potential TV show season pilots. Very nice lady. Love working with her whenever I can. And she was already going to work with Gravity Studios with me to make a sci-fi comedy show that has a D&D theme to it. But then, they was like, if you know any novelists, especially, like Game of Thrones type stuff and more D&D stuff, because that whole studio is obsessed with D&D. I'm not even joking. I don't play the game, but they love it so much they put it on the damn company website. That's how much they love D&D. And they was like, hey, if you know anybody who does any stuff like this, let us know, because we'd love to give them an audio show, or we'd love to, make a dramatic adaptation or just do a book narration for them. And we'll definitely cut them a discount. I was like, oh, I'll be on the lookout for something. I know a bunch of authors, but I don't know anyone who's got, dark fantasy novels. And then 2 weeks later, boom, you just find me.
Yeah, sometimes serendipity. I mean, that's why they call it serendipity, right? You just step into it, and
Yeah.
I was glad we had a chance to connect on that too,
Yeah. And I
because
don't
you're
know if
right.
you've
I mean, I
seen the
think that
show. I don't know if you've heard of or seen the show Chicago Med, Chicago PD, or Shameless at all. Have you seen
yeah,
any of those? Oh, okay. Well,
all three, yeah.
you know the difference between a director and a series director?
No, I'm
A
not in that
series
side of the
director
business.
will do certain episodes contractually, but they're not considered the director for the entire show. They're not there every day. They may show up if a director can't make it, or there's a scene that they don't want to shoot. Well,
I got you.
those three shows have one series director in common. He's a friend of mine, and he's an actual director. Like, you know, knock on wood, should somebody want to get a license, or you need a director potentially, whether it's voice on screen or off screen, I can send them your way. Again, giant business meeting. Y'all can sit and eat some pizza, or y'all can do it virtually. There's definitely the possibility for his company to aid and support you, even if it's just a commercial or trailer. Like, the potential is there. And the best part, here's the craziness. I don't know too many directors who also have a master's degree in marketing. Like, you
Yeah, no,
couldn't get
that's a little
luckier.
random. I mean, you would,
I know,
you
right?
would think you'd be pushed. Yeah, I mean, are you from my perspective? I mean, that sounds like a random. Yeah, but I'm a a dark fantasy guy, and I've got an MBA. So like, oh,
Yeah,
did I
dude,
lose you?
I've been a government employee 4 or 5 times, and when I'm not doing that, I'm usually doing something in distribution or warehousing. You can't eyeball somebody's background. Trust me, I know. I've been a Chamber of
Yeah,
Commerce. I've been DHS, military, and I'm probably forgetting something. You would never think with my background I do what I do. So, um,
yeah. Well, look, man, we all come from different walks of life, and you find the right path at one point or another. So, all good.
yeah, yeah. All right. Do you think novels are a gateway into graphic novels, or vice versa?
I think both. You know what I mean? I think that they come from two distinct, varying back. One is entirely visual with limited text. The other is entirely text, and the visual is something you create in your own mind's eye. But in many instances, if you're a fan of comics or graphic novels, oftentimes you're a fan of the same kind of stuff that you find in sci-fi, fantasy, dystopian kind of stuff, gothic horror, that kind of stuff. By the basis of what people do when they create new and popular graphic novels. Same thing holds true for my side of the aisle, which is an epic fantasy series or a dark fantasy series, which has its moments of rich and robust language that puts you into situations where you can imagine the scenery, you can imagine the monsters, you can imagine the battles, where that's translatable, I think, to the other form, that other medium with graphic novels and comics. So yeah, I think they go hand in glove with one another.
Cool. What got you interested in transitioning from just being an author to licensing out your material for other forms of media?
So part of it is I'm an entrepreneur by trade. I've owned about six different businesses over the course of my career. Some of them more successful than others, but I saw an opportunity to market and expand my readership and those that follow me on social media by going into a different direction. Not everybody likes to read 140,000 word, 500-page novels, but they don't mind playing video games, or they don't mind reading graphic novels, or they don't mind watching a TV show. And in some cases, they don't even read. Some people, the fastest growing part of my industry is audiobooks, right? So like
Yeah,
my
it's the
wife doesn't pick
explosive
up a book
growth
and
that
read
coming
it.
from podcast.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, my wife doesn't read the books, but she listens to them, and it's the same thing. It's just a little, just it's delivered differently, but it's the same content. So, I've always just saw it as a way of expanding, looking at it as a business where I am the brand and my products are the books, and therefore I'm just if I promote me and or the books, there's a cross marketing that happens there, and then if I could put that into other medium where folks will be able to, digest it and have a chance to, whether it's reading or watching a TV show or playing a video game. I mean, that's just a natural extension of the quote unquote business.
Oh, that's cool. I'm glad you look at it that way because there's a few too many authors just gonna type his name, not say it. There's a few too many authors who, I don't know, they almost get like an insecurity when one of their products gets more attention than the originator, or it gets more attention than they themselves. And I'm just like, that's you completely looking at it the worst possible way you can imagine. But I'm glad you don't take that
Yeah.
approach.
No, no, no. I'm very business oriented with it.
Oh, and by the way, that guy whose name I typed on Discord, yeah, don't ever have a conversation with him. He is exactly the stereotype people call him. Oh my god, I regretted it so quickly. And that was before I even played any of the games. So yeah, let's see. All
All
right,
good, man. No, don't even worry about it. We're all good.
yeah. Any upcoming products you want to mention? Hint, hint. Promote, promote.
Yeah, 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 sure. Well, first of all, thank you for it. I have book three in my series that it's called the Trillius Gambit, and the Gambit will be out and available on audiobook and ebook and paperbacks pretty ubiquitously sometime at late March, early April.
Mm-hmm.
And then the final book in the series, which will be called Echoes of Ghostwood, will be released in August or September of this year. So the Warminster Saga, the four-book series, will be completed by end of summer, early fall, and all four will be ready for a box set for the Christmas holidays. And then at that point, I'll announce the next projects as we get closer to it. But we'll have those here, and then the video game will look for an early or mid 2024 launch of the game.
Cool, cool. As always, I mean, well, this is text, but when this is over, give me links to everything, and I'll make sure they permanently stay in the description of anything I do relating to your material. All right, moving
Yeah,
in.
that's cool.
I know it's classic, but what are some words of advice you would give to new authors looking to write novels in general, not just like specifically fantasy novels?
Yeah, sure. So there's a couple of pieces of advice I'd pass on. The first is the toughest, which is be open to constructive criticism. What I found was when you write, you're often too close to your own work to see your mistakes. Like you can reread something 20 times and to you it sounds good, but someone that doesn't know what you're trying to describe or doesn't understand the plot line or the various character arcs, they may see holes that you don't see and you have to go back and redress them. And look at it as, making sure that your product is as best as it can be, and it needs to stand up to a critique. So be open to constructive criticism, and you can do that by sharing it with beta readers or friends that you know and you trust their opinions, or you're honestly going to get that when you go through an editing process anyway from your copy editor or your development editor or your publisher, or if you're an indie folks, the folks you're sending it out to as part of that. I think step two in there is try to write something every day. And it doesn't have to be long. It could be a couple of paragraphs. It could be outlining a future project. I look at it as going to the gym. Like the day that I don't go to the gym is the day my body tells me you're being lazy. Like, why aren't you at the gym? And you need to be there. So from my perspective, I always try to, put myself in a situation where I feel guilty when I don't write, and that way you stay on time with things, and practice makes perfect. And even if you're writing something that's unrelated to your current work in progress, it's something that keeps you honed, right? So you're practicing your craft at that. And lastly, I'll say this, and you've already mentioned it a little earlier. Treat this as a business. You just can't throw it out into the ether and hope that people find you. I think there's 80,000 new pieces of work that hit Amazon alone
Yeah, you're
every
going to
month.
need some
You
form of
know,
marketing and support.
you do. So it's doing shows like this or reaching out to other podcasters, radio shows, TV shows, hitting conventions. I go and do the smallest crowds at libraries and bookstores. I mean, I just did an event this past weekend at a regional library, and I think there was 10 people there. But that's 10 new readers, that's 10 new books sold. And when you get into that kind of mindset and you look at it that way, it's exposure which will bring you additional eyeballs, and I think those are the three pieces of advice I would leave for any aspiring author.
Well, that's definitely some words to live by. I like that. Um, I think that a lot of authors, even the more, quote unquote, luxurious ones, could actually stand and do that. Not trying to point fingers at Mr. RR himself, but the only thing that really makes me sad about him is that I can't look at him and be mad at him for not finishing his books, because I'm sorry, when I see him, I just see Santa Claus. I know it's wrong, but I do. But on top of that, like, he's notorious for, how long he takes to do things. And when he explained his process, on some level it made sense, but at the same time I was like, listen, you might want to consider getting like help with this. It's not even that he's a bad writer. We know he's not a bad writer. The problem is just that his form of writing is basically the equivalent of a dam. Maybe a little bit of water will trickle out, but you're never going to get an overflow because, well, he was always draining it before it could even fill up. I kind of feel bad about it because at the rate he going, and again, this is not me wanting this to happen, but I honestly feel like we might be at a point where he may kick the bucket before he actually finishes A Song of Ice and Fire. Yes, the name of the books is actually A Song of Ice and Fire. It was never called Game of Thrones.
Yeah, he's got a lot of latitude to do whatever the hell he wants, right?
True. So true.
Created a great product and property that Hollywood, in many respects, HBO has made just a killing on, and I'm sure we'll see more. We just saw House of Dragons this past fall, and the truth of the matter is he's got the latitude to do what he wants with it. I don't have that luxury, right? For me, there's an up and coming readership that expects products faster. And if you're not Martin or you're not Salvatore or
Yeah, it's
Weiss
easy to
or
be forgotten
folks that
about.
have, yeah, you got to make sure you have new product in front of them because people want to buy into a series that finishes it. They don't want to feel like they've been abandoned as part of that. And secondly, there's the culture has shifted in the sense that back in the day, it was okay to release one book a year or one book every 2 years. Now there's everybody wants to binge things, and whether you're binging your favorite Netflix show or you're trying to to binge your favorite book, I mean, having a series out, something that they can read, they don't want to wait that long. And even me writing epic fantasy, which just takes a lot. I can't, it's not like I'm knocking out 80 pages and I could turn out a new book every month in a novella form. These are deep reads with rich history, with magic systems, with multiple point of view characters, and they all have to weave together to make a cogent story. And that's hard to do. And so my pace is 6 months, and that's still long for some. So,
God damn.
my like
That's
I get where you're
impressive.
going with it. Yeah, I don't have the luxury because I'm not him. But one day I might, and I still don't think I can do that. If the creative juices are flowing, that I can't put a stop to them. There's no spigot to turn off with me. It's like it's got to go. Like I got to put it on paper, and even outline it. And just say, all right, I'll get back to it, but this is where I'm going with the story, and I know how this is going. I know how the scene is going to happen. I know how the book is going to end. I know the series is going to end, and I could not drag my feet. I mean, it's just my style of writing, I think.
Hmm. Very, as weird as it sounds, athletic approach to writing.
Yeah, and I'm like, that's a little bit of my background. I'm a former athlete. I did a bunch of, collegiate level stuff. And
Oh, see,
for
then that
me,
explains it. You
maybe
still have that work ethic.
yeah, I think it might just be something like that, where it's like, get up at 5 a.m. and, do more before most people are at work, and you already got 4 hours in,
Oh yeah, yeah. You basically
and
described
maybe
the
I look at it that
military.
way. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. All right. What we may have to do is
By the way,
short.
I got to jump in like 4 minutes. I've got a 3 o'clock conference call.
Okay. Well, let's burn through these questions, and once that's done, we'll just go back to synergizing. Okay. As a novelist, it's very common for non-readers to make the assumption that your material will be more popular if it's in a different media format. Do you believe that books should be spread in a different media, or do you prefer they stay in the original state, as close to the author's original vision as possible? Technically, you did already answer that, but if you can just refine it.
Yeah, sure. No, that I want to see my work in as many forms as possible. I get fan art drawn by my readers and they send it to me. I look at that as art. Like this is their vision of the characters that are in the novel, or this is their vision of what the castle I explained looks like. And that stuff's fun. I've had requests to do fan fiction, and I've kind of tried to put that off until the series is over so that they know the direction of the characters and how everything kind of ends up. So I'm not writing a story about someone who didn't survive the novels or things like that too. So, but I think that, the more the merrier. I think that only makes for a stronger product.
Fantastic. Okay. Let's see. What, in your opinion, was your favorite book to write?
So this is a bit of a cheat, but The Last Keeper was my first book. So that's my baby. That's like the
Ain't nothing wrong
firstborn,
with
you know what I mean?
sentimental value.
Yeah, you just feel like, even though as a writer have gotten better, but that was my first published work, and so therefore it's my favorite. So I know that's a cheesy answer, but I'm going to give it anyway. It's the truth.
Hey, we appreciate sentiment on this channel.
Well, good.
All right. Before you leave, do you have any funny writer or world building advice you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, yeah. So I always tell people that, and I mentioned this earlier about constructive criticism. Truth of the matter is this: I one time got like a 2-star review on Amazon. And
Oh,
the woman who left it to me said, "Hey, I wanted to love this book. I bought it. I loved the cover. I got home. I couldn't get past 50 pages, did not finish, 2 stars." And for about the first 10 seconds, I was pissed. I was like, why wouldn't you go more than 50 pages? And then all of a sudden, the light bulb went off. And what I took from it was that one piece of constructive criticism, which is I bought it because I liked the cover. So I said to myself, you know what? The cover did its job. And not everybody's going to like your stuff. You just have to accept the fact that not every piece of Stephen King's work is perfect. He's put out great books, and then not so great books, right? And there are going to be people that like your genre
mm-hmm.
and want to like your stuff, but just don't get it. So, sometimes that happens, and you just have to let it roll off of you and realize that your focus is on the people that you're building as your readership that do like your stuff, and focus on selling to them.
Okay. And here's our bonus question, courtesy of Luke. Shout out to Luke over at Sega. He was wondering if your adaptations of your Warminster universe. Okay, let's see. Let me just read it. I was wondering if his adaptations of his Warminster universe to game would be about the actual characters that exist, or about the general manner that exists in this world, including their own traditions and ways of life. Essentially, he's wondering: do you plan on making games about the characters or games about the universe of Warminster?
Yeah, the truth is it's both. There are going to
Cool.
be the major characters that you're going to read about are going to exist in the game, some of which you have to visit to finish the varying quests that are in there. Some of them you have to defeat. There are the big bad evil guys and the bosses that you'll run into as part of your video game experience. And then the world building that's around that, absolutely. You're going to go to the same cities, you're going to see the same things. It's no longer just going to exist in your head. It's going to be presented to you in the form of this video game as opposed to a world building environment within a novel. And you'll be able to create your own avatars and play your own games, and you'll be able to trade items with other players. You're going to be able to interact with other people in a way that makes it next generation gaming, and continues to build on what we've seen over the last 10 years, and then push it into augmented reality, and then a couple of years from now into virtual. But I think that's it's it for Luke's sake, it's going to be a bit of both.
Okay, well, just to be clear, Mr. Hillard's books can be found wherever books are sold, physical and digital, and for free in libraries. I'm not sure when this episode will be out, but I'll make sure you get a chance to look over before it does. I appreciate you coming through. And after your meeting is over, obviously not recorded, but I would love to continue that synergy discussion with you because I got quite a few questions based on what you said. If you have a little bit of extra free time later today, but I definitely
I do. I'll
appreciate
give
you
you a
coming
call. It
through.
might be like 4 o'clock my time.
Yeah, yeah, that's perfectly fine. I definitely appreciate you coming through, and I look forward to reading your works in the future.
Thank you, sir. Much appreciated. Thanks for having me on.